Greetings, good morning, and welcome to Mind the Moment. This is our coffee house in the cloud where we invite you to join us in building community, getting centered, and feeling connected. We've made it to Friday, folks. It's May 15th, 2020, which is the 22nd day of Ramadan. Ramadan Mubarak to everyone out there celebrating. I'm John Roberts from Harvard Pilgrim Health Care's mindfulness program, and I'm here with Tara Healey, who called our program into existence nigh on 15 years ago. Good morning to you, Tara.
Good morning, John. Good morning, everyone.
So in just a moment, I will hand it over to Tara to lead us in a 10-minute guided meditation, after which I will get us started in a Q&A by asking Tara a question I have before turning it over to you at home and then wrapping it all up just before 9 a.m. You may have noticed at the bottom of your screen an option to open up a chat box. At any point, please do so and use that chat box to type questions or comments. On that note, Tara, is there anything you'd like to ask folks at home to comment on as we're getting started here?
I guess, the typical check-in, just how are you feeling this morning? Emotionally, physically, how you doing?
Great. So, all right, it's great to be sitting with everyone here this morning. Now, I want to keep in mind that Tara and I are the only ones who will be able to see what you type. And if we don't read your question or comment on air, please know that we do read and appreciate them all. And before we close, I will point you towards some other ways to get in touch as well. So let's see what we got here. We got a few folks chiming in. Someone says, there's concerned about the scary future around us. Someone says that they're feeling a little bit better these days. Relaxed, tired, but peaceful. Better than yesterday. Found it really difficult to get to sleep. I actually had that myself last night. Neutral, but with some anticipation. Grateful for these opportunities. So that's a I feel like a little spark of hope and gratitude in there.
I agree.
think that's great.
I agree. Yeah, interesting. I had trouble sleeping last night too.
Here in New England, it suddenly got a little bit hot, so it might that was my problem.
I got up and opened the window. So
I have one of those places that kind of traps the heat like a cave. But so Tara, I'm guessing that at least some of the folks watching might be relatively new to meditation. I'm wondering if you might start us or lead us into the meditation by talking about some of the things that new meditators often wonder about, often ask you about.
Yeah, sure. Over the years, there have been thematic questions around meditation. So I'm going to address 3 of them this morning, right before we begin the meditation. So kind of quickly go through them. And I would encourage people, if you have more questions, to don't hesitate to reach out. And there's a way that you can do that John will talk about at the end. But the 3 questions are: how long should I meditate? How do I know if it's working? And what if I can't settle my mind and body? So those are really, really common. So the first one, what if, sort of how long should I meditate? And if somebody's brand new to practice, or even if you've had a practice that you've let lapse a little bit, I suggest starting with small increments of time. And a formula that I typically recommend is 3 minutes, 3 times a week for 3 weeks. This helps one begin to gain some comfort with the discomfort often associated with non-doing. And sitting with oneself in this way, absent the typical distractions, is basically an invitation for all kinds of things to arrive: thoughts, emotions, body sensations, some pleasant, but often, especially in the beginning, unpleasant. But ultimately, we're learning how to relate to and engage with these things with less resistance. So we're developing a more comfortable relationship. The other thing I would say about practice is consistency is really important, and the research is starting to show that as well. I think some of the latest research is as little as 13 minutes a day for 2 weeks has shown some structural change in the brain. So the next question, how do I know if it's working? And I love this question because as a society, we are driven toward results. And in a way, it's no surprise that this question is common. And meditation is simple, but it isn't easy. So I feel like it's a very fair question. Like, if I'm doing something difficult, what am I going to get out of it? But the best way to know if it's working is to look at your life and see if it's getting any easier, especially related to things and people that provoke you. So do you have a little bit more room with that person you struggle with? Or are you able to respond to a difficult or challenging situation and you're starting to notice you have a little bit more ease and maybe a little bit more patience? Um, so essentially, how are you relating to and engaging with all aspects of your life? And that's how you know if it's working. And then the last question I'll cover briefly is, what if I can't settle my mind and body? And some version of that is pretty common, but often at the top of the list of frequently asked questions. And so that question in itself implies that meditation is about being calm and easeful. And uh, if you joined this before on a Friday, you've heard me say probably a few times that calm and ease is the byproduct, but not the goal. But the thing is, we have pictures and images that sort of promise this, and peaceful and serene people sitting kind of in a pretzel-like position, and everything seems good in the world. And it's a false image, unfortunately. And then we have decades of cultural baggage related to this practice. But the idea is that we show up to formal practice. We sit down, stand up, lie down, whatever posture happens to be the posture we want to work with. And then we practice with an attitude of interest, receptivity, curiosity, with an unsettled mind and body. And is there a willingness to meet this unsettledness with this kind of curiosity about what is happening? So dropping the storyline and just feeling into the physical experience. So watching thoughts, emotions, body sensations arise, kind of do their thing, and you will see that they move on. And in a way, I think the best way to think of it as a scientist and a subject. So it's almost like, if you were to look through a microscope, you would look with a curious, receptive attitude. And that's the attitude that we're practicing with. So I know I went through those quickly, but I would invite more questions and dialogue about that. And again, John will cover the best way to reach out with questions and comments. So with that, let's go ahead and settle in. And again, the posture of your choosing, so it's okay to stand. You can sit on a chair, or if you have a meditation cushion or bench, that's fine. Lying down is a fine posture. It's just that you want to be careful of sleepiness. So I typically don't recommend that, especially if you're new. But otherwise, go ahead and settle into whatever position you're in with an engaged, upright posture, and with a spine that is straight but not stiff. And surrender your weight into the support of the surface that you're on. And see if you can just notice the points of connection between the body and the surface. And just those subtle touch points. And let's begin with a deep inhalation in through the nose and an exhalation a little bit longer through the mouth. And let's do one more just as a way to settle any surface tension. So breathing in and breathing out. A little bit longer on the exhale. Stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. And notice sound in the area that you're in, either in the room or outside of the room. Just for a moment, anchoring attention to sound. And so just allowing the sound to come to you. And allowing sound to remain in the background. And begin to bring awareness into the body. And just simply notice the rhythm of your breath. And to know that however you're breathing is fine, and the body can regulate on its own. So just begin to notice the rhythm of your breath. And now begin to see where the inhalation and exhalation is most noticeable. Is it the rise and fall of the abdomen, chest, nostrils, or just an overall sense of body breathing in and body breathing out? And tracking breath sensation all the way in and all the way out. The mind will wander. We're not trying to stop that. We're just simply noticing that when the mind has gone off on a story or a memory or planning or wherever, as soon as we notice that, that's actually a perfect moment because you are now awake and aware, and you can escort your attention back to and rest on your anchor. And then the last thing I'll say is that many of you know that I have often said that breath is not the only thing. So that if you're having trouble with breath, you can put your palms together and notice the points of contact. You can use sound. You can rest your palms on your thighs and just aware of those coming back over and over again to that point of contact. And so just returning again and again to the anchor you've chosen, resting awareness. And noticing where the mind is, and gently reconnecting with the object of your choosing, the anchor. And again, noticing where the mind is. Reconnecting with your anchor. And as we bring this meditation to a close, may we be peaceful and at ease. May our heart be soft and open. May we be safe and protected, and our bodies healthy and strong. And for all of those known and unknown to us, may they be peaceful and at ease. May their hearts be soft and open. May they be safe and protected, and their bodies healthy and strong. And may our practice be for the benefit of all beings everywhere. And when you feel ready, you can allow the eyes to open and re-engage with each other. So thank you.
Thank you, Tara. So earlier you were presenting thoughts on the types of questions a person might have when they first start meditating.
Yep.
And during that first period of practicing, I feel it's like usually not too long before a person hears about this thing called a silent meditation retreat and thinks to themselves, should I do one of these? So for
Yeah.
those of you unfamiliar with the concept of the meditation retreat, let me volunteer a few broad strokes.
Yeah.
There are different kinds of meditation retreats, of course, but one conventional type takes place at a dedicated retreat center where a person will stay for the duration of the retreat, which might last anywhere from a few days to a week to a few weeks or even several months. There are different lengths for different levels of experience and also to accommodate different life circumstances. While on retreat, a person is asked to not do any of the following things: read, write, engage with any screens or devices, not even talk to any other person, especially not the other people who are on the retreat. The exception to the not talking rule is the teachers, but you can only talk to them at designated times. You're also not supposed to harm any living being, which means if a mosquito lands on your nose, you're going to have to try to reason with it. So instead of reading, writing, looking at your phone, talking about your phone, and killing mosquitoes, you will be primarily alternating between periods of sitting meditation and walking meditation, with each period lasting roughly 45 minutes. So a typical daily schedule might go something like this: wake up, sit for 45 minutes, eat breakfast, sit for 45 minutes, walk for 45 minutes, sit for 45 more minutes, walk for 45 more minutes, eat lunch, sit, walk, eat dinner, sit, walk, listen to the teacher talk about why this has all been a very good idea, sit for a final 45 minutes, go to bed, wake up, and then do it again the next day. So because all the retreat centers are closed at the moment, this past weekend, my partner Annie and I decided to do our own mini retreat in our apartment, which we decided would last from Friday evening to Sunday afternoon. You can do this sort of thing pretty easily if you have enough control over your space and as long as everyone in your space is more or less on board with the idea. After the weekend was over, I was describing what I had taken on to a friend of mine. This friend doesn't have any background in mindfulness, nor really any interest in it, but he'd been curious why I had not been returning his texts all weekend. Note to self, especially in times of pandemic, when turning off your phone, turn on automatic replies.
Mhm.
After I told him what I'd been doing, he asked me a question which frankly caught me off guard. Why? He asked. Why do you sit in meditation retreat? What do you get out of it? And here's why this question took me off guard. Most of the time when you describe a meditation retreat to a person, they react with this zesty mix of horror, bewilderment, and fascination. They say things like, how can you do that? Or I could never do that. But they seldom ask, why do you do that? If he had asked me
Right.
why I had bought, this can of beans as opposed to that can of beans, I could have told him that very easily. But when it came to something related to something as important as training the mind, I found
Hmm.
I had no set answer, and that struck me as odd. When I first started, sitting meditation retreats, I think I did so as a rite of passage. It was the thing you did to show the other people doing the thing that you were serious about the thing that you were all doing. But I've now sat 8 meditation retreats in 8 years. And so surely people must think I'm serious by now. So why do I keep doing it? So I've decided to sit with this question over the weekend so that I can maybe offer some thoughts of my own about it next
Mm.
week. But for now, I want to turn it to you, Tara, for your insights. What is it that you personally get out of a meditation retreat? And what do you think a person considering sitting a meditation retreat ought to expect to get out of one themselves?
Yeah, no. And John, thanks for the description of what a day is like, because essentially it really is Groundhog Day. So you're doing the same thing over and over and not reading or writing. And, because those things actually stimulate the mind, as does conversation. And the whole idea in a retreat is you're getting a level of steadiness that you wouldn't necessarily get by doing, a home practice of, 30 minutes or 60 minutes a day. But John, retreats offer an opportunity to deepen your understanding. I think it's important to remember that we practice to understand ourselves better, to see our mental patterns and habits with greater clarity. And additionally, we're learning about the nature of change. So in this kind of a setting, over an extended period of time, we get to watch thoughts, emotions, and body sensations, and you get to see patterns and duplication. So we get to watch these things do their thing. They kind of arise, do their thing, and they pass. Um, we're as we learn their nature, which is ever changing, they start to these patterns and habits, especially the difficult ones, or the unpleasant things, they have less of a grip over us because we are getting to know them with greater clarity. And, I think of a retreat as a time at a time. So over, days and sometimes weeks of silence, the nervous system settles in a way that I've never had my nervous system settle with a home practice. Concentration increases in a way that I've never had concentration increase when have my regular home practice. So all allowing for whatever needs to be expressed, for patterns to emerge, to gain a deeper understanding of the changing nature of everything. Um, and I think, what's interesting is that when I say it allows for whatever needs to be expressed. So part of the reason they're hard is something you might have done in grammar school that you wish you hadn't done is going to come up. And I always feel like it's there anyway, and this way of engaging with it allows it to sort of burn off in a sense. And it's the analogy I use a lot is it's expressing because it needs to, it's in there anyway. And over time, everything that needs to arise gets the opportunity and you get to work with it. The other thing is there's a natural tendency to distract without being aware of it. So grabbing your phone, opening the fridge, grabbing a book, keeping busy, these are natural tendencies. And those natural tendencies are amplified when they're removed. So you get to see that habit nature, that sort of habit pattern. So I guess I'll pause there.
Well, Tara, I have to ask because you brought it up. What is it that you did in grammar school that you shouldn't have that comes up when you're on retreat? You know
Oh
what?
my
You don't have
gosh,
to answer that. That's
John, that is so funny.
Okay. So for the folks at home, I'd love to have you type questions to ask Tara, and as you are
Yeah.
doing so, somebody actually mentioned a few moments ago. He wrote, "So much of mindfulness is focusing on the body. I have severe arthritis, so grounding the body is not particularly useful. The breath, of course, works." And I guess I thought it was
Yeah.
useful to point out that there are different methodologies for different people in different circumstances, which you always bring out when you were leading, but I thought that was an important point that was being made.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, I think it's a bit of trial and error of finding what works for you. And, even on different days, something else, sound might work for me on one day and then breath another. So yeah,
And somebody wrote, I have done several one-day retreats. I have found it to be a reset and a chance to really check in with myself. And that's another good point there. I mean,
definitely.
a lot of people sit like 7-day retreats. That's pretty average, but that's not the only way to do it. A
Right.
one-day retreat can be a really great experience for a person.
Even half day. Yeah.
Right, right. And
Yep.
on that note, Tara, I was wondering if you could actually talk a bit about how does a person know that they're ready to sit a meditation retreat? I mean,
Ah, yeah.
what are the I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. I think that having having an understanding of what the experience is going to be like. And I know, for instance, the Insight Meditation Society in Barrie, they have a section now called What to Expect. So I think it's like looking, kind of looking at that, thinking about your own practice, because there's not it's different for everybody. Occasionally somebody will go on retreat with very little practice and do actually okay, but that's not the norm. So I suggest people really understand what it is, and also what's happening in their life. So if they're, having a difficult time, there's a family situation that's challenging, that might not be the time to do it necessarily.
And so we've been talking about these long durations of practice, and somebody asks a question which I think is very important to clarify. She
Yeah.
asks, is starting meditation for 10 minutes a day, if you are new to this, okay?
Yes, yes. So, absolutely. And I really recommend small increments of time if you're new to it, in part because you're just getting used to being without distraction, and that's challenging, surprisingly challenging. And learning to anchor your attention on something over and over again so that you can get some steadiness. I mean, there's essentially two parts to this. One is gathering and collecting attention, having some concentration, and the other is using that concentration to see patterns and habits more clearly. That's the insight part. So it's like concentration then will allow for insight and clarity so we can see our patterns and habits.
And so Tara, I mean, even if somebody were to get inspired by this conversation to want to sit a meditation retreat, they they couldn't do it right now. I'm wondering if you
Right.
have any opinions or thoughts on what the future of the meditation retreat is going to be like, given our current situation.
Yeah, no, I've thought a lot about this. I mean, I started sitting silent meditation retreats over 20 years ago, and I don't miss a year. And it's an interesting thing that I have thought a lot about. And at some point, I think they will come back. But the problem is that you're in groups of 100 people typically, and in fairly close quarters. But the online option is really interesting. And I know, Insight Meditation Society in Barrie is doing a lot now and really ramping up. So it's sort of like we're in a way sequestered in our homes. You have the opportunity to get some good guidance. Really, I mean, stellar. We are so fortunate in that we have some of the most renowned teachers in the world that are working out of the Insight Meditation Society. So, and there are other, I mean, Spirit Rock in California. So in a way, it doesn't matter where you live.
Yeah, and Tara, you and I have talked about this. The online options are actually offering the opportunity to sit with teachers that you might not be able to sit with otherwise. Teachers who might be, excuse me, based in California,
Yeah.
or whose retreats are often full, and now we have that opportunity to sit with them, if even virtually. So that's been kind of one positive in this.
Yes. Yes.
That's I'm going to start to wrap us up here. So we'll be back with you every Tuesday and Friday at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. You can find the links to these sessions and other resources at our main site at harvardpilgrim.org/mindfulness. Please do drop us a line at askmtm@harvardpilgrim.org, or leave a comment on our Facebook page. Let us know what's on your mind. What do you like about what we've been doing? What could we be doing better? What questions do you have for Tara? You can also leave us a voicemail at my desk number, 617-509-7047. You can rewatch this session and older sessions on our YouTube page and find guided meditations on our SoundCloud page. Tara Healey, thank you so much for guiding us this morning.
Thank you, everybody. So glad that you joined, and have a wonderful weekend.
Yes, I hope everyone has the moment to stand, that we'll see you again here soon. All right. Goodbye,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye, everybody.